John Carver lived alone on a quiet ranch far away from the noise of towns and cities. His land was wide and open, stretching across green fields, gentle hills, and a line of old oak trees that stood like silent guardians. From sunrise to sunset, John worked with calm patience, feeding his horses, repairing fences, checking the water lines, and making sure every corner of his ranch stayed healthy. People in town respected him. They said he was hardworking, honest, and simple in his ways. But those who knew him well also knew one more thing. John lived with a quiet, empty space in his life. He had no family, no children, and no one waiting for him at home many years earlier. When John was around 26, he met a traveling elder on a dusty road not far from the ranch. The old man spoke in a slow voice and looked at John as if he could see something in him. He said, "One day, you will be given a child. It will happen not by accident but by destiny. When the land is ready, you will understand." At that time, John did not know what the old man meant. He simply smiled, gave the elder a drink of water, and helped him continue his journey. But the words stayed with him for more than 10 years. Sometimes they felt light, like a forgotten story. Sometimes they felt heavy, like a promise waiting in the shadows. Now John was in his late 30s, and life had become a quiet routine. He did not expect anything unusual. Every day looked like the one before. But strange things began to happen slowly around the ranch. At first, John thought he was imagining them. He found footprints near the creek, footprints larger than any person could make. They were deep, like they belonged to something with great weight. He thought maybe they were just marks, caused by falling branches or some natural trick of the sand and water. But the footprints kept appearing in different places. One morning, he found the corner of a corral bent outward, as if something tall had leaned on it. Another day, he saw broken branches high above his head, far too high for any normal person to reach. The horses sometimes lifted their heads suddenly and stared toward the forest, ears forward, eyes calm but alert. They were not scared. It felt almost like they were greeting someone they had known for a long time. John became curious. He started looking around with more attention. But nothing dangerous ever happened. The ranch stayed peaceful. The air stayed calm. Still, he could not ignore the feeling that something unseen moved quietly around him. One evening, when the sky was turning orange and pink, John stood on his porch with a mug of warm tea. The wind moved gently across the grass. Birds were returning to their nests. Everything was calm. But then, very softly, like a memory carried on the breeze, he heard a voice. It was gentle and distant, almost like a whisper. It said, "We will give you a child one day." John froze. His heart beat faster, but he did not feel fear. The voice was not harsh or threatening. It felt familiar in a strange way, like it came from the same place as the promise the elder made long ago. John stepped off the porch and looked around the fields. There was no one. Only the sound of leaves and the soft rustle of wind. But he knew he did not imagine it. Something was changing. That night, John could not sleep. He lay awake thinking about the voice, the footprints, the strange signs. Could the old man's words finally be coming true? But how? Why now? And who could bring a child to him? He had so many questions, but no answers. Before dawn, he finally fell asleep. The next morning started normally. John fed the animals and checked on the water troughs. But as he walked near the barn, he felt a small tremor in the ground. He paused. Maybe it was just his imagination. Then he felt another tremor, soft but real. The horses lifted their heads and looked toward the far end of the field. They did not run. They did not panic. They simply watched with calm curiosity. John turned his gaze the same way. At first, he saw only the sunlight falling across the grass. But then he noticed movement, large shapes walking slowly toward his ranch. His mind tried to make sense of the sight. As they came closer, his breath caught in his chest. 3 women, tall beyond anything he had ever seen, were walking toward him. They were not monstrous or frightening. They looked human, but they were giant in size, with calm, steady steps that made the ground tremble slightly. Their hair was long and natural, their clothes made from woven fibers that looked handmade and strong. They carried nothing in their hands. They walked with respect, heads held gently, eyes soft. John felt his heartbeat quicken. He did not know what to do. Should he run? Should he hide? Should he stand still? But there was something peaceful about them, something familiar in their presence, as if they were the reason behind all the strange signs. The tallest woman, who walked in the center, raised her hand in greeting. Her voice was deep yet warm when she spoke. "Rancher," she said, "do not be afraid. We have watched your land for a long time." John swallowed, trying to find his voice. Who are you?" he asked, keeping a respectful distance. The woman smiled kindly. "We are from the mountain tribe. We come in peace." Her words were simple, but carried a quiet power. The second woman stepped forward slightly. She was shorter than the leader, but still far taller than any normal person. Her voice was soft. "We know the promise made to your family. The time has come." John blinked. The promise? The old man's words? Everything started fitting together in a way that felt unreal. He asked carefully, "What promise?" The leader's eyes softened, as if she understood his confusion. "Long ago, your family helped one of our elders. He spoke to you when you were younger. He told you the truth you would receive a child one day. Today is the beginning of that promise." John felt the world tilt slightly. This was too much to understand at once. 3 giant women standing on his ranch speaking calmly about destiny and promises made before he was born. But even with the shock, he felt no fear. Their presence was strange but gentle. "Why? Why did you come here?" he asked. The leader answered, "To begin the path. You were chosen because of your heart, your patience, your kindness. We will explain more when the time is right." John nodded slowly. He realized he should show them respect, the same way they were showing him respect. He stepped back and pointed to the porch. "Would you like to sit?" he asked, unsure if this was the right thing to say. The women smiled politely. "We will sit on the ground," the leader said gently. "Your chairs are too small, but your invitation is kind." They lowered themselves to the grass near the porch with calm grace. John stood near them, trying to understand everything. The sun was setting behind the hills, painting the sky in gold and red. The light touched the women's faces, making their calm expressions even more peaceful. For a few minutes, no one spoke. The silence was not uncomfortable. It felt like the air itself was holding its breath. Finally, the leader spoke softly. "We came because the time has arrived. Tonight is only the beginning. You will learn more in the days to come. The land is ready. You are ready." John felt a quiet shiver, not of fear but of anticipation. The old man's voice echoed in his mind. "You will receive a child one day. Not by accident, but by destiny." Now, 3 giant women were sitting in front of him, telling him the same thing. The world he knew was changing. The sun dipped below the horizon, and the ranch grew quiet. John looked at the women, then at the wide land around him. Somehow he sensed this was not a moment to run from. It was one to face. He nodded respectfully and said, "Then I am ready to listen." The leader smiled warmly. "Good," she said. "Tomorrow, the promise continues." That night, John lay awake again. But this time, he felt something new purpose. The empty space inside him felt smaller, as if something important was finally arriving. Part 1 ends with John realizing his life will never be the same again. The next morning began with a soft, warm sunrise. A thin golden light spread across the ranch like a calm blanket, touching the grass. The barn, the wooden fences, and the porch where John stood holding a cup of warm coffee. Normally his mornings were slow and peaceful, but today everything felt different. He wasn't alone anymore. 3 giant women were somewhere on his land, resting near the old oak grove where they had spent the night. John still wasn't sure if everything he had seen the day before had been real. But when he heard the faint, steady footsteps approaching the barn, footsteps heavier and deeper than any human steps, he knew it had not been a dream. He put down his cup and walked toward the sound. The 3 women appeared from behind the grove. In the morning light, they looked even taller, clearer, and somehow gentler. The leader, Mira, walked in front with steady grace. Behind her came Lyra, the thoughtful one with calm eyes, and Sira, who had a warm smile that felt almost familiar already. They greeted John politely, with nods of respect. Their voices were steady and warm, not loud or frightening. Mira stepped forward and said, "Good morning, rancher. We hope our presence did not disturb your rest."
Oh.
John shook his head. "It's still new to me, but I'm all right," he said honestly. "I just don't understand everything yet." "You will?" Mira replied. "Today we will begin explaining," Mira added softly. "Nothing we share will harm you. Everything will make sense step by step." John felt a little more relaxed. He motioned for them to follow him toward the open field. They all walked together slowly. John noticed how each of the women stepped carefully, making sure not to damage plants or frighten the animals. The horses even approached them something unusual. Horses were normally cautious with strangers, but with the giant women, they showed a strange comfort. They sniffed their hands, nudged them gently, and even followed them for a few steps before returning to the pasture. John watched with quiet amazement. "You're good with animals," John said. Sira smiled. "Animals are honest. They sense kindness and intention," she said. "They know we mean no harm." John nodded. He had always trusted the instincts of animals. They walked until they reached a quiet hill at the back of the ranch. The sunlight fell softly across the grass, and the air smelled fresh, as if waiting for something important. Myra stopped and looked toward the distant mountains. "This is a good place to begin," she said. John stood facing them, ready to listen. Myra took a slow breath. "We come from the mountain tribe," she said, "a hidden place deep in the highlands. Our people live far from towns, far from roads, far from anyone who might disturb us. Our tribe follows old traditions, old ways passed down for many generations." She looked at John with gentle seriousness. "We grow large not because of anything strange, but because our food, our climate, and our lifestyle shape us this way. We are healthy, peaceful people, but our tribe is small, too small." Lyra stepped forward. "Many years ago, our tribe faced trouble. A sickness spread. Not a dangerous one, but one that weakened us little by little. Many of our young people left for the world outside and never returned. Our numbers began to fall," Sira added, her voice soft. "We needed help. We needed a way to survive. And long ago, help was given to us by your family."
Cowboy.
"By my family? How?" "I don't know anything about that," Myra nodded. "You were not born then? But your grandfather met one of our elders many decades ago. He gave him shelter and food when the elder was injured. Your grandfather did not ask for anything in return. He simply helped." John felt a strange warmth in his chest. "His grandfather had always been kind," Sira continued. "Our tribe does not forget kindness. The elder made a promise. He said your family would never be without guidance or support when they needed it most. That promise was passed down to us." John remembered the old traveling man he had met years ago, the one who told him he would receive a child one day. "Was that old man from your tribe?" he asked quietly. Mira nodded. "Yes, he was one of our elders. He saw something in you. He saw the same quiet heart your grandfather had. He knew the promise was not finished."
Oh.
John swallowed slowly. Everything connected now: the old man's words, the strange signs around the ranch, the gentle voice on the wind, and now the arrival of 3 giant women. "But why me?" John asked. "Why come now?" Lyra stepped forward. "Because your life reached the right time. The land is peaceful. Your heart is strong. You have patience, kindness, and a home filled with quiet safety. All this matters," Sira added softly, "and because our tribe needs someone like you. We are facing another season of difficulty. We must place our hopes in a safe place, with a safe person. The promise made long ago is tied to you." John felt overwhelmed. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't a leader. He was just a simple rancher. But somehow these 3 women believed he had something important to offer. "What do you need from me?" he asked. Myra's expression softened. "Not much today. Only trust. In time, we will give you something precious. Something to raise, protect, and guide. Something that belongs to both our worlds. John nodded slowly, though he didn't fully understand. I'll try, he said. I'll listen to everything you want to tell me. The women looked at each other with thankful expressions. Then we will teach you, Mira said. The rest of the morning was filled with simple explanations. Nothing too mysterious, nothing too heavy. The women showed John how they read the land, how they understood weather changes before they happened, how animals communicated through body movement, and how silence could speak louder than noise. They spoke about strength, but more about wisdom, patience, balance. John listened carefully, asking questions when he needed to. The women answered every question with patience. Around noon, they helped John repair an old broken fence. Mira lifted a heavy wooden beam like it was nothing, and the other two held posts steady while John hammered nails. It felt almost unreal to work beside people so tall and strong, yet so gentle and respectful. You don't have to help, John said, feeling a little embarrassed. We choose to help, Lyra replied. We are guests on your land. It is right to give something in return. By afternoon, the ranch looked better than it had in years. Fences were straight, fallen logs were cleared, and even the barn doors were repaired. John couldn't believe how much the three women had done in a single day. Their strength was surprising, but what impressed him more was their sense of calm teamwork. They never argued, never rushed, and never showed anger. Everything they did was careful and peaceful. When the sun began to lower again, Mira said, We want to show you something before the day ends. John followed them to a quiet corner of the ranch he rarely visited, a small clearing near the edge of the forest. The air felt cooler here, almost sacred. The women stood in a circle around him. Mira began to speak gently. Our tribe has many traditions. One of them is the bond of guardianship. When we trust someone deeply, we share our knowledge with them so they can protect what is important, Lyra added. Today, we begin that bond with you. Seer lifted her hand and placed a small woven band in John's palm. It was simple, made of tiny threads and natural fibers, but it felt old and meaningful. This is a sign of trust, she said. We want you to keep it. John looked at the band and felt a quiet weight settle in his heart. Not a burden, but responsibility. What does it mean? He asked. Myra answered, It means the promise is close. It means we trust you. And it means we will return soon with something you must protect. John wondered what that something could be, but he did not ask further. He sensed the answer would come when the time was right. As the sun touched the horizon, turning the woods golden, the women began walking back toward the grove. Will you sleep there again tonight? John asked. Yes, Myra said. We rest there. Tomorrow we will speak again. John watched them leave. He felt gratitude, confusion, curiosity, and a quiet excitement all mixed together. The ranch no longer felt like a lonely place. It felt alive with purpose. That night, John sat on his porch, holding the woven band. The wind moved gently, and he thought he heard the same soft whisper he had heard before, but this time it felt closer, clearer, and full of meaning. The promise will soon be complete, the wind seemed to say, and for the first time in many years, John felt he was no longer waiting for something unknown. He was preparing for something important, something he could not yet see, but could already feel. Part 2 ends with John sensing the quiet closeness of a destiny he had never expected. John woke before sunrise on the third morning, long before the sky turned bright. Usually mornings on the ranch were calm and quiet, but this morning carried a heavy stillness, almost like the land was waiting for something important. The air felt cooler, and even the birds had not begun singing yet. John stood on the porch with his hands resting on the wooden railing. Watching the dark horizon slowly turn gray, he didn't know what would happen today, but he felt certain that the three giant women would reveal the final part of their purpose. For 2 days they had taught him, helped him, and spoken of a promise from long ago. They said something precious would come to him, something connected to destiny. John didn't fully understand, but he trusted them now. As the first soft streaks of light appeared, John heard slow, steady footsteps from the grove again. These footsteps were familiar, now calm, heavy and powerful. He stepped off the porch and walked toward the field. Mira, Lyra, and Sira emerged from the trees. But something felt different today. They walked slower, their expressions more serious. Myra carried something wrapped in a large woven cloth made from mountain vines. The shape was round and gentle. It's like a cradle or a basket. John's heart began to beat faster, not with fear, but with deep curiosity. The women approached him quietly. When they reached the open field, Mira lowered the woven bundle carefully to the grass. "Rancher," she said softly, "the time has come." John looked at the bundle, then at Mira. His breath tightened. "What? What is inside?" he asked gently. Lyra stepped forward. "Before we open it, you must understand something important." John nodded, listening. "Our tribe has lost many people over the years," Lyra said. "Some left and never returned. Some were taken by the mountains. Some were lost to sickness. But one loss hurt us more than any other," Sira added, her voice warm but sad. "A young mother and father from our tribe went missing during a forest disaster. They were never found." John felt his chest tighten. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. Mira nodded with appreciation. "Thank you." Their loss left behind something precious, something that needed protection. John looked at the bundle again. "The baby?" he asked softly. Mira smiled slowly. "Yes, a child who needed a safe home. A child who carries the future of our tribe. A child who needs someone patient and kind. Someone steady. Someone with a strong heart." John's breath shook. He looked at the woven band they had given him the day before, still wrapped around his wrist. "And you chose me," he said. "We did not choose alone," Mira replied. "The promise chose you." Lyra knelt beside the bundle and slowly unwrapped it. The woven vines unfolded gently, revealing a hand-carved cradle inside. It was smooth and clean, decorated with small natural patterns. Inside the cradle lay a baby wrapped in soft fabric made from mountain cotton. The baby slept peacefully. Tiny hands resting near its face, chest rising and falling in small, gentle breaths. John stared at the child for a long moment. The world felt still around him. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He simply stood there, absorbing the quiet miracle in front of him. Mira spoke softly, as if not wanting to wake the child. "This is the child we promised. The child your family was meant to protect. The child the elders spoke of years ago." John felt something warm grow inside his chest, feeling he had never known. It wasn't fear. It wasn't confusion. It was a soft, deep pull, like his heart recognized something before his mind understood it. Sira lifted the cradle slightly and offered it to John. "Will you take this child into your care? Will you give the child a home, safety, and kindness?" John swallowed. His hands trembled slightly, but not from uncertainty. He stepped forward and gently took the cradle into his arms. Something changed inside him the moment he held it. The world felt different, quiet, complete, meaningful. "I will," John said softly. "I promise." The three women watched him with calm, warm smiles. "The child will grow with you," Mira said. "We will guide you when needed. We will watch from the mountains." "You will not be alone in this duty," John nodded slowly. "I'll do everything I can," he said. "I'll make sure this child has a good life." The baby stirred slightly, opening its eyes for a brief moment. They were calm, dark, and full of quiet curiosity. John felt something almost magical, like the child accepted him in that instant. Lyra stepped closer. "There is something else you should know," she said gently. "This child is from both worlds, not by blood, but by destiny. The tribe will always be part of the child's life, even from afar. And you, rancher, will be the bridge between two ways of living." John nodded, understanding more than words could explain. The sun rose slowly, bathing the field in soft golden light. It touched the cradle, the baby, and the three women. Making the moment feel almost sacred, Mira lifted her hand in a slow gesture of blessing. "May your home be peaceful," she said. May your heart stay open. May your life find meaning in the care of this child, Sierra added with a warm smile. You are no longer alone, rancher. John looked at the baby again. No, he said quietly. I'm not. The three women stepped back a few steps. We must return to the mountains now, Mira said. Our tribe needs us. But this is not goodbye. When the child is older, we will return. And when you need us, look to the mountains. We will hear. John's eyes softened. Thank you, he said. For trusting me, for giving me this gift, Lyra nodded. You earned it even before you were born. The women began to walk back toward the grove. Their enormous steps were slow and steady. John watched them go, the cradle in his arms. The morning light stretched across the field, making their tall figures glow for a moment before they disappeared into the trees. The ranch grew quiet again, no tremors. No giant footsteps, only the soft wind and the distant sound of the horses. John carried the child gently back to the porch. He placed the cradle on a soft blanket and knelt beside it. The baby slept again, peaceful and calm. As John watched the small face, he felt something rise inside him, a sense of responsibility, a warm patience, a kind strength he didn't know he had. The child wasn't his by blood, but somehow the child already felt like family. He whispered softly, "You are safe now. You are home." The day passed slowly, but beautifully. John spent hours preparing a small room for the baby. He moved a bed, cleaned old shelves, and set up a little corner with soft blankets. The house felt alive in a new way. Every step he took had purpose. Every small task felt meaningful. He was no longer a man living alone. He was someone with a future to guide. As evening approached, John sat on the porch with the cradle beside him. The sunset painted the sky in warm colors. The land looked peaceful. The wind carried a soft whisper, almost like a distant blessing. John looked at the mountains in the far distance. He knew the giant women were watching from somewhere they called home, and he knew the child and his care connected him to them forever. The baby stirred again and opened curious eyes. John reached a gentle hand toward the child. He whispered, "You were promised long ago, and now you're here." The child blinked softly. As if understanding, the story ends with John rocking the cradle as stars appear in the sky, feeling a new kind of hope, a hope born from kindness, destiny, and a promise finally fulfilled.